Nirvana by Stephen Adams. The words are by F.E. Weatherly. Nirvana, the state of freedom from the ills of existence to which the devout Buddhist aspires. A state of rest, painless and eternal, spoken of by Sir Edwin Arnold in his Light of Asia as blessed nirvana, that change which never changes. You might be wondering why I, a minister of the Church of England, should be singing a song about nirvana. Well, it's a love song, and of course I dedicate it to my wife.
of you will know that famous gardener, Mr. C.H. Milton. I'm happy to tell you that he is with us tonight, and he is going to tell us something about the Christmases of his boyhood.
My happiest Christmases have been spent in the old village. The fields covered with a white mantle of snow, with the music of the church bells floating through the frosty air, the carol singers and the handbell ringers with their little brass bells, 2 in each hand, ringing out the strains of Noel across the quiet meadows. Christmas Eve, with the arrival of aunts and uncles, the excitement and speculation surrounding sundry parcels that arrived with them. I can remember helping to decorate the village church with evergreens, and how important I felt about it. I would trudge backwards and forwards carrying things, working like a navvy. But if my mother asked me to chop wood or get a bucket of coal, that was a different matter. There was no glory in that. On Christmas Eve, organised by the local schoolmaster, we went round the village singing carols. And carol singing was taken seriously then. We practised in the schoolroom for days. I remember once during the South African War, an old farm labourer who fancied himself as a tenor. He wanted to sing the popular song Bluebell. When it was turned down, he walked out and slammed the door. To my great delight, I was chosen to sing the treble solo in one of the carols. This annoyed Anna. She bounced out of the choir and sulked for a month. She even left the choir and sat in the opposite corner of the church, where she set up a sort of rival concern. It was not a difficult matter to upset folk. The church people and the chapel people were in opposite camps and were seldom on speaking terms, but they would always welcome into the fold a convert from the other side. At one time we had a broad-minded minister. He worked very hard to break down the barrier, with a measure of success. He even addressed a temperance meeting at the chapel, much to the horror of the partisans on both sides. In the course of his address, he related that as a small boy, he had been given a glass of wine. It made him feel so ill that he joined the Band of Hope and never touched it again. The next weekend, the local nonconformist newspaper came out with a startling headline, "Vicar drunk at the age of 7." After the formalities of Christmas Day, Boxing Day was a much more relaxed affair. There was always a meet of the hounds in the local town. Sometimes a shooting party was made up. For my part, I enjoyed a game of skittles in the local. There is something about the homely atmosphere of the village inn which appeals to me. The big fire, the local gossip, and if the farm hands should get a bit rowdy, well, they work hard for the rest of the year, so who's to blame them? As often as not, we finished up with a dance in the schoolroom. It was not uncommon for the young men to turn up in breeches, gaiters and hobnailed boots. Then the polkas and quadrilles became noisy affairs, often ending up with a few casualties. But they were jolly affairs. Our pleasures were homemade and independent of the outside world and mechanical invention. but perhaps they were all the better for it.
Earlier that Sir Arthur Sullivan looked to the Wychwoods for some of his tunes. It may also not be generally known that Alfred Lord Tennyson looked to the Wychwoods for some of his inspiration, as we shall now hear.
without friends, I fear. But which is the one that I found, that I love on another day. There is mystery all around.
Who is going to tell us something of what is happening in our schools. It gives me great pleasure to introduce to you Mr. Frederick B. de Salisbury. I hope I have your name correct, sir.
You indeed. You have indeed. Thank you. I'm here tonight to read to you from the logbooks of Milton and Shipton School, as they are written by the local head teachers, usually called masters. Now, Mr. Giblet at Milton School, which is non-denominational, also has control of a separate infant school, but not control of the school at Lynham. Like Mr. Giblet, Mr. Pierce at Shipton under Wychwoods Church of England School also has his wife teaching alongside him. Mr. and Mrs. Pierce are doing their best to keep up the school numbers at Shipton by producing some 8 or 9 children of their own. Of whom 4 or 5 have assisted in the running of the school. From the logbooks I see that there are regular visits of inspection by the local gentry and clergy, members of the school boards, and by various inspectors, myself included. Now, the amount of money allocated to schools depends upon the results of these inspections, both of the children's performances and their attendances. And I note again that the masters spend a great deal of time pushing, persuading their pupils to do better, and cajoling and forcing their parents to pay the school fees and to send their children to school regularly. I will now read from the logbooks. 1869. Began to admit better class of child at 6d per week. John Turner sent home with the itch. Visited mother, sent her to the vicar. Albert Longshaw sent home for misconduct of self and grandmother. Mr. Randalls withdraws his children from Shipton School and sends them to Milton, as directed by his wife. Mrs. Cox takes her child from school rather than pay 2 pence per week. 1880. November the 10th. Having passed 3 winters without corporal punishment in the night school, began now to try day school without. November the 18th. Broke rule of November the 10th. J. Hedges convicted and fined 2 and 6d each for non-attendance of children. And I notice that the following year, J. Hedges received another summons, was convicted and fined 5 shillings plus costs. One of the Kings let out at 4:05 p.m. to carry brother's tea to the station. 1887, from a copy of one of my reports. Order is defective, as the children are apt to talk to each other. Moreover, they murmur aloud over their work. 1888, Mr. Pierce records, July the 17th, death of my son. July the 18th, school closed. Annie Calcutt, too dull and underfed to be worked. Continued. John Henry King reported for non-attendance. Dr. Roberts certifies that he is unable to bear the strain of more than 2 days per week. Yet, his parents applied for leave for him to work at the hay harvest. The master has great trouble to get the school fees from a couple of families in the square, the children having to be constantly sent home. The recent rains have found some places in the roofs, and the water comes in great abundance. A gratifying note of thanks for the teaching of Emma Silver. It is seldom a note of this kind is received, parents generally thinking that it is not even necessary to let the master know that the child has left, and that a great debt is due to them for keeping the child at school. 1892. There has been a great deal of sickness lately, owing to the damp weather, no doubt, though some parents who have a grievance attribute it to the disinfectant used around the school. Some boys absented themselves to follow the hounds and received a thrashing the next morning. After the harvest holiday, the loss of knowledge is very discouraging, and as many have not returned to school, the brightening up process has to be done again and again. The offices have been cleaned during the week, and a more abominable experience could not be imagined. It is a great pity that the more workable system